The original NSX represented a lot of firsts in the automotive industry. For one, it was the first mass-produced all-aluminum car, the first model with VTEC, the first with four-wheel independent ABS, the first with electronic power steering, and don't forget, maybe the first really reliable supercar. That model was so successful that it was sold for a full 15 years without substantial updates. After that model ended production in 2005, Acura was left with the monumental task of following up an icon. And during that decade gap, they made sure that the successor would be just as innovative. So now today we have that model, the all-new 2017 NSX, and we're going to see if it lives up to the original. We would like to specially thank Courtesy Acura for allowing us to film today's vehicle. If you want to check out their huge inventory of new Acuras, a link to their website and their physical address has been provided in the video description. This unit is for sale, by the way. I know most people don't have that type of money sitting around, but if you do, then our friends at Courtesy would love to work with you. The heart of every supercar is its engine. So let's go ahead and check that out first. Underneath the rear hatch you will find the engine, though there is a lot more going on under the body where we can't see. It is a hand-built 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6, which makes 500 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque on its own. The engine is supplemented by not just one, but 3 electric motors. The first they call the direct drive motor, and it is situated between the engine and the transmission. It makes an additional 47 horsepower and 109 pound-feet of torque. Finally, the front wheels are powered independently by 2 36 horsepower electric motors, effectively giving the NSX all-wheel drive, but not in the traditional sense. The electric motors have 2 big benefits. The first is that they provide instant electric power during the time before the turbos on the engine get fully spooled up. As speed increases, the stronger engine takes over, so this effectively makes for lag-free driving. The second benefit of this setup is that the front wheels can independently torque vector to enhance the turn-in of the car. All this together is good for 573 horsepower and 476 pound-feet of torque, which is enough to propel the NSX to 60 in 3.1 seconds, the quarter mile in 11.2 seconds, and to a top speed of 191 miles per hour. For the transmission, you have a 9-speed dual-clutch automatic. Acura says the reason for the electric power is for performance and not fuel economy. But nonetheless, its EPA rating of 21 city, 22 highway, 21 combined is really impressive. While we're back here, let's take a look at the trunk. It's not real big, but that's to be expected. The actual measurement is 4.4 cubic feet, and it looks big enough to fit a couple travel bags or maybe a golf bag. Now that you know what powers it, let's check out the rest of the NSX supercar. The NSX doesn't just look nice, but every part of the exterior is designed with a purpose. There are tons of vents and ports, and they either dissipate heat, suck in air, or create downforce. A substantial part of the body is black on all models, so when combined with this black body color, you get a positively menacing look. Up front you have a loose interpretation of the signature Acura grille. Obviously the engine is not up here, but the electric components and the brakes still need a lot of cooling. The headlight design links to the rest of the Acura lineup. They are dual-eye LEDs with 5 distinct elements. You also have LED daytime running lights and an LED turn signal. You also have large hood vents as well. I want to take a moment to talk about the paint. Each paint job has at least 9 layers of primer, base coat, and clear coat. This paint color is known as Berlina Black, and it has been offered on the NSX since its introduction in 1990. These are the base, ultra-lightweight, 19-inch forged aluminum Y-spoke wheels, but there are some optional interwoven wheels as well. Acura says they are the lightest in the class. Here are some pictures of the optional ones. In all honesty, I think these are probably the best looking ones. The standard brakes are 14.5 6-piston calipers in the front and 14 inches in the rear. But if you desire even more, you can get these optional cross-drilled carbon ceramic brakes for the small price of only $10,600. Obviously, they have more stopping power, but they also weigh 52 pounds less than the regular setup. According to Car and Driver, they were able to stop the NSX from 70 in 142 feet. The brakes are also regenerative, since it is a hybrid after all. We have the standard tire, which is a high-performance Continental Conti Sport Contact summer tire. They are staggered, so they are 19 by 8.5 inches in the front and 20 by 11 inches in the rear to help get the power down. The mirrors are very sculpted for aerodynamics. They extend far from the body, not just for aerodynamics, but also because they need to see past the wide rear haunches. They also tilt down in reverse and are heated. Here's a quick glance at the sticker. We will break it down at the end of the video. Even the door handles are flat to reduce drag. Now this is one of the most important parts. This huge intake captures all the air needed for the large twin turbos. They, by the way, have 15.2 psi of boost, so they definitely need all the air they can get. This is another cool aerodynamic touch, since air can pass straight through here. It's a little hard to tell on the black model, but we have the optional carbon fiber roof. It looks cool and lightens the car, but it costs a pretty penny at $6 grand. The NSX is 176 inches long, which for reference is about the same length as a Honda Civic or just about any other compact sedan. The curb weight of this vehicle is 3,803 pounds, with a distribution of 42% in the front and 58% in the rear. Since the electric motors add weight, Acura was very conscious of the materials used in the rest of the vehicle. There is extensive use of aluminum and even carbon fiber for the floorboards. The NSX also uses magneto-rheological dampers, which continuously adjust for the optimum use of the tires. The back kind of reminds me of a rocket ship or something. All models get this lip spoiler, but you can get a larger carbon fiber option. The taillights are LED, and they go all the way across the vehicle for a cool look, especially at night. Down here you've got some more areas for heat and air to escape. This diffuser can also be in carbon fiber. The exhaust is quad tipped, but they all come through the center mounted area. Even the 15.6-gallon fuel tank is high-tech. It is actually divided into two sections made from a specialized resin material and mounted as low as possible. Now let's see how livable the everyday supercar's interior is. The NSX has basically the same key fob as other Acuras, but I'm not upset about that since it's already one of the nicer ones in the industry. NSX is engraved into the metal on the bottom. Now the NSX has an interesting intelligent entry system. You don't actually have to push any buttons or anything. The handle will just eject upon your approach. Inside the NSX, you will find both a sporty and luxurious looking cabin. We have the ebony color scheme to match the exterior, but 3 other colors in fancier semi-aniline leather are available. They are orchid, saddle, and red. The door trim is very nice. You have padded leather through here, and Alcantara and more leather on this portion. We have the standard 4-way manual seats, which are present for weight savings, not to be chintzy. 4-way power seats with 4-way lumbar are optional. Most seats are like this, with leather on the outside and Alcantara on the inside. You can get fully leather seats if you prefer. When you first get into the NSX, you will be struck by just how nice it is in here. The materials are appropriately nice for something that costs this much. And we have some extra carbon fiber bits as well. Everything else is covered in supple leather with stitching. real aluminum trim, and more Alcantara. The armrest is leather as well, with some Alcantara accenting. Push-button start is standard. Of course, I'm not going to start it since we are in a building, but I'll still fire up the electronics. This 7-inch touchscreen is standard equipment, although navigation is optional. The button pulsates red, which is a cool touch. This is an 8-inch high-def screen, but mixed with some real elements, which I like a lot. The neat thing about it is that it changes with the drive modes. Just twist this knob, and the design changes completely to give you the more important information for that mode, like the oil temperature. I'll discuss what each mode does a little later in the video. The NSX has variable gear ratio electric power steering, fed through this almost square steering wheel. We also have the optional carbon fiber accents. It feels absolutely fantastic in the hand. You also have full-length paddles, which are aluminum. And here's your standard affair of steering wheel controls. Radar cruise is not available. Storage is not even a consideration when you buy a car like this, but nonetheless, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. In lieu of a center console, you have this area, which could hold a couple of cell phones or some sunglasses. You also have a charging USB port, and this is where you plug in for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This little space is sized about right for your key fob. The glove box is surprisingly about the same as a normal car, but most of the space inside is taken up by the cup holders. You have to slide them into this slot if you want to bring along a drink. Coming to the gear selector, it's pretty much the same electronic setup as on the TLX and MDX. You just press the D for drive, and you can shift manually with the paddles. For reverse, pull back on the trigger, and tap P for park. There is also an electronic parking brake and a brake hold feature, so you don't have to keep your foot down on the brake at red lights. This knob is for the drive modes, which I already showed you. Sport is the default mode, and it is basically the sweet spot between very responsive and relaxed. On the more relaxed side, you have the quiet mode, which keeps the engine off at lower speeds. When it is on, the engine is limited to 4,000 RPM, and the intake sound control valves are closed off. Sport Plus mode makes things much more aggressive, with more aggressive throttle mapping, yaw control, shifting, and exhaust note. The steering also offers more feedback. Finally, track mode takes everything to the max and unlocks launch mode for the fastest possible acceleration. In an automotive first, you can also have different default modes for different times of the day. The climate control is automatic 2 zones. There's nothing particularly special or complicated about it. Now that brings us to the infotainment display. If you are thinking this looks familiar, you are right. It's basically the same system that many new Hondas are using. That said, it's easy to understand and the touchscreen is responsive, so it doesn't really bother me. If it does bother you, then use the smartphone connection, which will show up as either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto depending on what phone you hook up to the system. Integrated navigation is optional, but both these setups will do it through your phone, so it's not necessary to pay extra for it. In audio, you can pick between these sources, including apps like Pandora if they are installed on your phone.
With a hot steam towel, massaging shampoo, and sweet, sweet sports on TV.
The base audio system is a 290-watt 8-speaker setup, but a upgraded and heavier 590-watt 9-speaker ELS system is available. The mirror is auto-dimming, and you have HomeLink universal remotes located up here. Of course, there is no heavy moonroof. All models get a black headliner, but this Alcantara one is optional. Having that engine behind your head, however, is what it's all about. Audio system and headliners don't matter much in the grand scheme of things. Overall, I'm really impressed by the cabin of the NSX. I expected it to be compromised on comfort in the name of performance, but it's not. It seems that Acura really has succeeded in making a supercar that is incredibly capable, but also viable for everyday use. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed our detailed look at the brand new 2017 Acura NSX, our first ever supercar review. Pricing is coming up next, and be sure to subscribe for more detailed reviews on cars ranging from mainstream to exotic. Take care and join us again as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.